Tim Walz had shut down our state with the entire country. Lost all my food licenses. I lost my liquor licenses. I was barred from the state. I lost 2 businesses. I own 2 different separate businesses. Barred from the state for having a liquor license for 5 years. Was forced to file personal bankruptcy. Was fined over $300,000 from the Attorney General of Minnesota.
Small business owners in Minnesota are raising the alarm over Governor Tim Walz's policies, casting doubt over how he'd handle regulation as vice president. Joining us now to talk about it is Linda McMahon, former Small Business Administration head under President Trump and America First Policy Institute chair. Linda, thank you for being with us. Take us into the climate for small businesses under a Kamala Harris administration. What would it look like?
Well, thanks, Brian, for having me today. Well, first of all, let me just take you back a little bit under the Trump administration, where the small business climate was. We had lower regulations, we had lower taxes, we had the highest optimism rate, according to NFIB, from small businesses, in decades. We had more businesses starting, the economy was flourishing, and it was a wonderful place to be for a small business owner. So then, under the Biden-Harris administration, we saw increase in regulations, increase in taxes, optimism levels fallen. It's just not the same place. And so you cannot have a vibrant economy if the small business community is not vibrant. And when Kamala Harris talks about, corporations and gouging prices and all of that, that's not the reason for the slump in the economy. The reason is the policies that have gone under, Biden-Harris. And I am afraid of what, a Harris-Walz administration would bring with more regulation, more taxes.
Yes.
And I just think that's what we'll see.
Mentioned
that's clearly what the governor did in Minnesota. I mean, he has the highest corporate tax rate in
Can
the
I
country.
talk about price gouging? I just want to jump in because you mentioned it and it's really piqued my interest. I asked the same question to Kevin Hassett at the top of the show. Last year, grocery stores were lucky if profit margins were 1.6%. Kroger, I mean, they're lucky if they made 2% last year. But instead of asking you the question on what it means for an economy, I want to ask you how small businesses handle this. When you have an administration telling them you're not allowed to make money, and the minute you do, you're evil price gougers, and we now no longer believe in capitalism. If you're a small business looking at an administration who's telling them that making money is bad and instead they're evil, greedy price gougers, how is a small business supposed to operate in that environment?
Well, it's very difficult for them to operate. And with the high interest rates that there are now, the access to capital and the ability to grow, if they had the enthusiasm to grow, they're afraid to grow. Why would they invest in a business? Why would there be more business innovation if that kind of damper is put on the enthusiasm for small businesses and giving them the tools to help them succeed? Rather than giving them the tools, giving them the environment in which to grow, they're told exactly what you said. No, you don't need to make a profit.
Right.
You don't need to be in business, but we are a capitalistic society, and that's exactly what I believe in.
Yeah, and I've always said they're not in the business of charity. They're not giving stuff away to consumers. They do need to make some sort of profit. All of a sudden, that's been demonized. But Linda, while we have you, I want to also talk about wage growth, because the Harris camp loves to say, wages are up, even though inflation was high, you're making more money. But real wages, as we know, are actually negative, and people don't feel that wage growth because goods cost so much more. I make $15 an hour, but I have to spend $15 to be able to buy something, a meal at McDonald's for lunch. So ultimately, how are they going to get out of this pickle, specifically Kamala Harris, who has been part of this administration and really can't distance herself from what's happened here?
No, and we shouldn't allow her to try to distance herself. This was the Biden-Harris administration. These are policies that she supported. In interviews that she's had over the last 3 years, you will hear her talk all the time about being supportive of the American worker. But how is it being supportive of the American worker if, in fact, the wages don't keep up with the price of inflation, and inflation is a result of their policies? So the worker can't get ahead in that environment. So what do they have to do? They have to take on a second job. Even talk about seniors who have to take jobs now because they can't make ends meet. So it's a downward spiral. We have to support our small businesses. We have to support our American workers. because that's the only way the economy really does grow and flourish.
Yeah, and the only way you raise wages sustainably is to increase productivity, and the heart of that is America's small businesses. Linda McMahon, great stuff.
Absolutely.
Good to see you. Thanks for being with us.